All right, let's talk about something that's a huge part of modern business. But let's be honest, it's often a huge pain, the budget. Today, we're not just going to talk about how to get through budget season. No, we're going to explore how to move beyond it completely to get to a much smarter, more dynamic way of planning for the future.
So, I want to start with a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself for a second. In your work life, what is that one process that comes around every single year that just sucks up endless hours, causes a ton of stress, and then often feels totally useless almost the moment it's done?
Yeah. If the annual budget just popped into your head, you are definitely not alone. For a century now, it's been the central nervous system of how companies are managed. But here's a thought. What if that cornerstone of business is actually more like an anchor, just weighing us all down?
See, the annual budget wasn't handed down from the heavens. It's a management technology, an invention from the 1920s pioneered by General Motors. And look, it was a brilliant idea for its time, but that was 100 years ago. The world has changed just a little bit since then, but for most companies, the basic model for budgeting is still stuck in the past.
So what is so wrong with this century-old system? Well, there's a whole movement called beyond budgeting, and its supporters argue that the traditional budget has three, fatal weaknesses.
Okay, first off, they are just incredibly expensive to create. I mean, think of the sheer amount of time, energy, and money that gets poured into this thing every year. Second, they can create some really weird incentives, right? When you know you're going to get punished for missing a target, what's the natural thing to do? You sandbag. You lowball your estimates so you know you can beat them. And third, and this might be the biggest one, they're totally static. In a world that changes by the minute, a budget can be out of date in a matter of weeks, making it pretty much useless as a guide.
And if you want to see an extreme example of how this can go wrong, look at this quote about the CEO of WorldCom. It really shows you the dark side, where the budget stops being a tool and starts being a weapon. It becomes this command and control thing that creates a culture of fear. It's all about hitting that number, no matter what, no matter the context.
But it absolutely does not have to be this way. Let's look at a company that actually broke free from this annual grind. We're talking about a petrochemical company called Borealis. They didn't just tweak their budget. They built a whole new model from the ground up.
The folks at Borealis, they knew this pain all too well. You know the drill. They'd spend months and months creating this incredibly detailed annual budget, only for it to end up as a dusty binder on a shelf, completely irrelevant just a few weeks later because their market was just moving way too fast.
So they did something radical. They just scrapped it. And in its place, they built this really smart integrated system. See, instead of one giant clunky budget trying to do everything, they created 4 separate dynamic processes. They used rolling forecasts for planning, a balanced scorecard for performance, activity-based costing for cost control, and a decentralized process for investments. Each tool was built for a specific job. This table really makes the shift crystal clear. You can see how each job the old budget used to do was handed off to a much more flexible, specialized tool. So, instead of a fixed target, they tracked key performance indicators. Instead of a rigid capital plan set a year in advance, investment decisions were made dynamically by the people on the ground. They literally deconstructed the budget and reinvented each part.
Okay, the Borealis story is pretty inspiring, but how can other companies actually apply these ideas? Well, the good news is there's a clear, step-by-step playbook for building a more dynamic planning process.
It all starts with a sales forecast that's based on what's actually driving your business, not just what you did last year. Then, you translate that forecast into a really detailed operating plan. But step three is the secret sauce. You use a model to turn that plan into a super precise forecast of the resources you're going to need. From there, your spending budgets, your OPEX and CAPEX almost create themselves, and you can get a real sense of your future profitability. You know, this really represents a huge mental shift. Traditional budgeting is like trying to drive a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. It's all based on what happened last year. This new model, this is all about looking through the front windshield. It's about using forward-looking data to navigate what's actually coming up on the road ahead.
So let's talk about the engine of this new model. This is where the rubber meets the road. How do you actually accurately translate a sales forecast into a real, actionable plan for your people, your technology, and all your other resources?
The key here is a technique called time-driven activity-based costing. Now, don't let the complicated names scare you. Its job is actually super simple and incredibly powerful. Think of it as a translator. It takes your operational plan, what you're going to do, and it translates it into exactly what resources you'll need to get it done.
So here's what you feed into that translator.
This isn't just some big, high-level sales number. No, this is a detailed operating plan. For this made-up financial firm, Towerton, it breaks down the forecast into the actual number of trades, new accounts, and customer service calls they expect. This is the nitty-gritty detail the model needs to work its magic.
And this is what you get out on the other side. You feed in the plan, and the model calculates the demand for each resource. In this case, it crunched the numbers and said the firm needs 225.3 brokers. So the company decides to staff up to 230, giving them a little cushion. See, it's not a guess based on last year's spending anymore. It's a precise, data-driven calculation.
And just look at the kind of precision this gives you. The company can now plan to run its broker team at 98% capacity. I mean, think about that. That level of accuracy is it's impossible with traditional top-down budgeting. It lets a company match its resources to its actual needs with incredible efficiency.
So what this all means is that you've completely transformed what a budget even is. It's no longer a fixed target handed down from the corner office. It's a living, dynamic, rolling forecast of the resources you actually need to run the business and hit your goals. It becomes a tool for navigating the future, not a weapon for controlling the present.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Moving beyond the annual budget, it's not just some accounting change. It's a cultural one. It's about enabling agility, it's about empowering your managers, and it's about getting the whole company focused on the future, not the past. So the question I want to leave you with is this. How could a dynamic, forward-looking process like this change the way your organization operates? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.